Good morning. We will just give it a few moments for everybody to load into the webinar and then we will begin. So, good morning and welcome to our Equine Degree Programmes webinar. I'm Kaylee, I'm a graduate from Writtle and I now work within their marketing team. I'm joined here today by Jane, Rosa, Jamie and Caroline, who are part of our academic team, and I'm also joined here by May, who is our student ambassador. Now, before I hand you over to the academic team, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to Writtle and why it's a great place to study. So, what to expect from today's webinar? As I say, I will give you a brief introduction to Writtle University College. You'll then get a detailed understanding of the courses that we offer in equine. You will get a student's perspective of life at Writtle University College. You'll be able to see our facilities, and then we will answer any questions that you may have. Please do pop through your questions at any point during the webinar, and you can do so by putting them into the question box on your control panel. So, why come to Writtle? We have a long-standing reputation for land-based courses since 1893. We are located in rural Essex, close to Chelmsford, and we have some great transport links. We are a small and specialist institution. We are friendly, welcoming and supportive, and we have a great community feel, meaning that we're an easy stepping stone on school or college, or if you're looking to get back into education. And at Writtle, we offer a wide range of subjects and facilities, and we give that ideal blend of theory and practical learning. We also have some fantastic support services that are there to ensure that you succeed and that you make the most out of your student life while studying with us. So just to talk you through and shout about our NSS results, we got a 92% overall student satisfaction, meaning we were ranked highest university sector institution in England. And for our equine courses, we got some outstanding feedback, and I think that this slide speaks for itself. So moving on to our facilities, we are a large open campus of around 480 acres, and we are surrounded by beautiful gardens and countryside. We have our dedicated equine centre, includes our working stud facility. We have our Titchmarsh Animal Centre, our canine therapy centre, our 100-acre working farm, and on our main campus we have our library, our careers advisory service, and our purpose-built higher education study hub. We also have 14 halls of residence. As well as this, we have our garden room restaurant, our Time Out Cafe and our Starbucks pod. We have a recreation and fitness centre, which includes a gym and free weights room. We also have our design studios, research labs, glass houses and our multi-faith room. So as I mentioned, we are situated in a great location. We are in a beautiful rural Essex village. And within Writtle, you would be able to find a co-op supermarket. There are also some pubs there. We have famous Tiptree Tea Room. So there's a doctor's surgery, pharmacy, and some restaurants. As well as this, we are really close to Chelmsford. And Chelmsford is the newest city in the UK, and it's only 2 miles away from us. And here you'll be able to find fantastic shopping centres. We have a trampoline park, there's an Everyman cinema, and we have a new leisure centre. And also in Chelmsford, we have plenty of pubs, clubs and bars that are there to satisfy all budgets and music tastes. But if you want to go a little bit further away while you're studying, we are just less than 40 minutes to London, just a 40-minute drive to Southend Seafront, and only a half-an-hour drive from Stansted Airport. So university is a great big step in life, so living on campus, you need to have that home-from-home experience. All of our halls of residence are on our main campus, and we have 14 halls of residence with around 400 rooms in total. And we offer a range of room options from a single room to a double ensuite, depending on your budget and your preference. Our accommodations have a common room and a lounge, and they have a small kitchen to allow you to make snacks. And there's also a meal allowance within your price for accommodation, and you can use this within our garden room restaurant, our Time Out Cafe and Starbucks. We also have our Time Out Cafe, which sells groceries and snacks. There's also a laundrette on site that you can use via an app on your mobile phone. And all of our first year students are guaranteed a place in our halls of residence. So as well as great academic teams, there is a life outside of learning. We have some fantastic support teams, from our learning support and our wellbeing teams to our student success team and our career support. We have a very welcoming students' union, and they are responsible to have for our social life, activities and clubs. This year, things were a little bit different and they had to be COVID safe. And we still managed to put some events on at the beginning of the year for including an SU bar event. We had some online activities, and the SU can also put on some themed fundraising nights, as well as being responsible for sports and societies. This Students' Union team is small and friendly, and there are opportunities for you to get involved with this outside your study. Before I hand you over to the academic team, I'm just going to show you a brief video about Writtle.
The great outdoors, and even greater indoors, an education for the real world, putting theory into practice, smaller class numbers and supportive tutors, highest overall for student satisfaction, breaking new ground, breaking the mold for almost 130 years, around 200 open hectares out.
Just a moment there, I don't think the video is coming up at the moment, so just bear with me one moment.
The great outdoors, and even greater indoors, an education for the real world, putting theory into practice, smaller class numbers and supportive tutors, highest overall for student satisfaction, breaking new ground, breaking the mold for almost 130 years, around 200 open hectares outside Chelmsford, a close community that will welcome you inside, making lifelong friends, experiences for life, being just 35 minutes from London, but a world away. Discover our hands-on, industry-recognised courses, putting theory to the test, putting alumni in high places, putting your career first, putting science into practice.
Apologies for that. I'll just hand you over to the academic team, and they're now going to talk to you a little bit more about studying equine at Writtle.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you can hear me, and now we'll get introduced to our equine team. There's about 12 of us that work within our team, and today we've got access to myself. My name is Jane Hart, and I am more involved in the performance side of the delivery of some of the modules on a range of the courses that we deliver. I have a coaching and veterinary physiotherapy background, and that makes me filter through fair few of the areas. I'm going to hand you over to Jamie, who is our course manager, and she can add to her repertoire.
Thanks, Jane. As Jane said, yes, I'm the course manager for our undergraduate equine portfolio. In terms of my own specialism, my background is working in nutrition, as well as in training horses, and particularly with young horses. And I teach across quite a few of our modules, some applied business, as well as our equitation science focused programs as well. Passing over to Rosa.
Hi there, my name is Rosa Vervice and I am a senior lecturer at Writtle. I've been here for 12 years now and I lecture in both behaviour and nutrition. And outside of Writtle, I'm a behaviour consultant working with horses. So all of us like to bring our sort of field practice and what we do outside right back into our jobs. So we're all very passionate about our specific focuses, and I'll pass you on to Caroline.
Hello, my name's Caroline Farr, I am mostly teaching on the reproduction side, so I work a lot at Lordship Stud, our on-site stud facility, and I work across the thoroughbred and the sport horse breeding repertoire, so to speak. I also do a lot with young horses and resource management, so yard management on both the stud side and on the equitation side. Passing back to you, Jane.
Jane, you're on mute.
Am I back on sound? Okay, so the programs that we have, we've already discussed where we have the luxury of being specialists in our fields, because we fall into the areas of the behavioral science, the performance and the business side of life. Equine performance science rocks my boat, along with the sports therapy and the rehabilitation. Now, those are our primary 3-year bachelor's degrees. Within those, we also have the 2-year diploma of higher education, and we also have a starting point for those who don't make the original qualification, a 1-year certificate in higher education, which allows you progression up through the programs till you complete your 3-year. But we'll go into a little bit more detail in that as we go through the slides. So if we move to the next slide, we will talk about how we have done such a great job this last couple of years integrating and listening to our students about what they want. And it's shown in our NSS student survey about how we have actually delivered what they felt was the appropriate and working with industry, the appropriate skills required to go out into industry. On the academic side, we have these amazing students who have actually delivered their research. So once you've developed your skills over the 3 years, we have conferences standard students that can deliver not only online, but have delivered at conferences when they were live. And we hope to go back to that again very soon. Moving forward, we also have a very practical development with our breeding systems, and we have produced some amazing horses. So, for example, Ros Cantor is currently riding a lovely horse that was bred here in 2012, and this is Walter. Lordship's Gruffalo, as he's known out in the world, has finished second in his first 4-star, and as one of the best 8-year-olds, hopefully will be leaving his mark even further in this next eventing season. So we have a very real output out into industry as well. So if we carry on and look at where this comes from, come on, Caroline, these are your babies. Give us a rundown on the joy of having these foals on site.
So each year with our on-site stud facility, we foal down a number of mares and foals, some that are stud owned and bred and some that are client liveries. So our students get to see a really wide range of different sizes, types and breeds. And it's a great experience for students to get hands-on with them when they're being born, even through the insemination process as well. And through their 3 years here, they will see perhaps the foals born in their first year as they go through and get to nearly the point of being backed, or get to see the weanlings from their very first year that might be being backed in their final year. So it's a really nice progressive opportunity for our students to watch the whole process go through. And we'll be looking forward to some new foals being born this spring on our stud.
Fantastic. And it must be said that there will be some students who don't leave without one of these. So just forewarned for those parents. Well, actually, very useful 21st present if you're looking and struggling for something a little different to send your children out with. So if we look at the next slide, we'll see how we start to now create these opportunities with our course structures. Within our courses, we primarily deliver the 3-year BSc honours degree. It's a 3-year course and it offers progression onto postgraduate study. Now, we're also very aware that it's not always the first entry point that students may achieve, especially where it's been a very complicated last couple of years. So within the 3 years, we also have a 2-year diploma of higher education. It could be that you're offered a job after 2 years and you step out after that, and you wish to use it either as a stepping stone or as a safety net. The Certificate of Higher Education is in place because it's the first year for people to enter if they're not sure if they have want to make a full career change or full-time academic commitment. And also the entry requirement means that we can be a little bit more flexible in how many academic points that you actually achieve. Now that'll make a little more sense as we move on to the next slide, which will then talk about the actual entry requirements. So if you bear in mind that we have a BSc, a Diploma in Higher Education, and a Certificate of Higher Education, the tariff points to the side of these are reflective, and you can see that they're color coded. So if you come from an A-level background, your entry requirement to get onto the BSc is 96 tariff points. So each subject that you sit and you achieve a result for, you will get academic currency. And that is the currency that you put forward onto the table for entry into one of the programs. But we're very aware that you know, life isn't that simple, as we all know at the moment. And it may be that you know, did you have flu on the day of your exams? Did something go wrong within the day? Or the build up to your finals, so you didn't quite achieve the tariff points that you thought that would take you first straight on to the 3-year honours degree. So it could be that you've achieved enough tariff points to get onto the DIP-HE, which is the 2-year program. So you could have also want to try your skills at coming in and on the first year, so you would have 48 to come in. But everything that you do, even with experience, counts as currency to come forward onto one of these programs. Now, you may have come from the FE spectrum, you may have come from the Irish higher certificate, leavers certificate, it could be the Scottish Highers, the International Baccalaureate. Every academic route and experiential pathway has got value. So all of these are collectively will give you the opportunity to enter onto one of our programs. Now, whether you start at the higher certificate, everybody starts in the first year. The only difference is if you start on the higher certificate, you have to have a clean slate of passing the modules to progressively go onto the second year. Once you're onto the second year, again, you achieve all of you pass all your modules and you step up straight away onto your third year. So there's very little difference, and no, you don't get any concessions for coming in on the higher certificate. Everybody, or the diploma, everybody is graded and expected to reach an academic standard as they progress through the years. Jamie, is there anything else that we need to add to that to make it a little clearer?
I don't think so. I mean, if you have any sort of specific questions, you can ask us after this presentation or book onto one of the one-to-ones, and we can give you some help with that. If you do have a slightly more complex academic profile, or perhaps if you're a mature learner that's been working in industry, your application typically will come through to me. If I don't understand anything on it, or if I can't make a decision, I will always come back to you and answer any questions and clarify the information. So just because this year, you know, exams aren't happening and the same for last year, doesn't mean you can't come to uni. We just need to look at your application a little bit more holistically and make sure that you are, you know, qualified enough to come onto the programme and that we can support you accordingly.
And the beauty of the UCAS system is that actually we get all the information. They do ask for so much detail from the students that we get so much information we can actually usually make a very clear decision as to where you'd be best valued into where you would start point from. So if, as Jamie says, if you have got a slightly different pathway that is not officially recognized through UCAS, please do still contact us, because there is many roads to Rome, and academia has many pathways. So if anyone's confused about that or would like to discuss it in more detail, please get back to us and we can talk that through later. In the meantime, if we move on to as Jamie's already started, she's going to elaborate on how we've dealt with the delivery over these last few months.
Sure. As I'm sure you're all more than aware, it's been incredibly challenging within education to ensure that we are providing really useful content to students and are able to communicate over a digital platform. Certainly at Writtle, this academic year, we've utilised what we call a blended approach to teaching and learning. This means there's a variety, so some content will be delivered over a platform that we use called Microsoft Teams. Some content has taken place obviously face-to-face, and all of our practical sessions have taken place on the yard where restrictions have allowed. So we've been quite creative in how we've delivered our content, and actually for semester A, students have really enjoyed that kind of balanced, blended approach, because they're able to focus in their own time. They have access to recorded lectures, so it really helps when it comes to assignment writing and revising for exams to be able to look back on that content, because it wasn't all necessarily live face-to-face. And then alongside their practice has really challenged them to put that theoretical science into their own kind of practical based scenarios. So we've been really lucky to be able to kind of still be able to deliver the quality of education that our students expect and that we always will strive to offer. This is looking like the plan also for this upcoming semester with our students. And obviously we're all hoping that we're pretty much back to normal in September. However, if that's not the case, we can't foretell what's going to happen in terms of the pandemic. We have a system that has worked really well this year, and I'm sure that May can elaborate later if you've got any questions about how that's worked. We also have what we call a no disadvantage approach to assessment in line with COVID-19. So what we're able to do is look at a student's overall portfolio, and if there's been a reason, say they've had COVID or they've had additional extenuating circumstances, or perhaps they've not achieved in one type of assessment that's been delivered slightly differently, we're able to look at that whole portfolio and make sure that our students come out with the grade that they deserve based on their ability level. So it's not just, well, you haven't done that well in this assessment and that's it. When it comes to our awarding boards and our end of year boards, we're able to look at your whole portfolio of study and make sure that you've come out on the grade that you deserve to be on. So we've got a little bit more discretion there. And I think also in line with that, we've got a really broad range of assessments that appeal to a really diverse student population. We've got students that have previously worked as lawyers, and we've got students that have come from a very practical national diploma type background. And all of our assignments, they tailor to those different students. So it's not just essays and exams. We have videos, we've got seminars, we have practical assessments, we've got competency logs, we've got webinar based things, we've got presentations. So it doesn't matter if you're not the most academic student, we give you the support to kind of get you there, but our assessment techniques and our assessment strategies allow any student to, regardless of your background and your own personal strengths and weaknesses, we give everybody the opportunity to succeed. And sometimes our most practical students, once they start really getting their head around the academic side, tend to be some of our better students and our more employable students. So it really is the balance of getting everything up to a standard. And certainly the first year that you study with us at Writtle is to get everyone to the same level. So we make sure that everybody is academically strong, but also practically strong, so that we can really support our mission of putting science into practice. If you've got any more questions about delivery methods outside of COVID or in relation to COVID, please do ask us at the end, or book onto the one-to-ones and we can chat through that with you as well. Okay, moving on, please, Kaylee. So as I said, we really do believe in putting science into practice. It's something that we at Writtle are really passionate about. It's incredibly important to us that we have students that are employable when they leave us in their third year. It's great being able to have the theoretical content behind you, but if you can't demonstrate it and you're not convincing on a yard, then that's a problem, and employers want that really balanced graduate to take into those roles. When you look at our programs, what you'll see is the first year is fairly similar for all of our students. Each year is built into 2 academic semesters, and typically on each semester you'll study 4 modules of 15 credits, or perhaps slight variations, but the amount of credits that you'll study is 60 during each semester. So all of our equine students, regardless of their chosen specialism, will study equine anatomy and physiology. So this is getting everybody to understand how the horse works internally, so they can apply that knowledge onto modules further down the line. If you look forward into the second year and into the third year, that scientific foundation is essential for success in the modules further on throughout our programs. All students also study health management, equine practical skills. Like I say, it's incredibly important to us that our students are able to go out and work hands-on with horses. You'll also study equine nutrition as a prerequisite for all of our programs, and saddle fit and farriery. So these foundation areas are essential for any equine graduate. It doesn't matter if you want to be a behaviourist or if you want to be a sports therapist, you absolutely need to have a really strong scientific based foundation to succeed within the industry. What you'll also see along our programs is at the bottom of all of these course plans is their kind of specialism bespoke line. So for equine performance and business management, this is our applied business line. So things like business management, event management, digital brand management, working with industry partners as part of a consultancy project, getting your head around those strategies and those operations focused areas within the business sector is incredibly important. Our equine performance and business management program, I would suggest, is our broadest course. If you are a student that doesn't necessarily have a defined idea of what you want to do when you graduate, this is a fantastic program that allows you to investigate all of the different areas that make up the equine industry and choose a specialism that feels right for you. It's quite unique. We're really lucky that we do have 2 very bespoke lines. If you look at stage 2 and stage 3, you'll see the coloured blue and the coloured green lines. And these are your specialist modules, so you get to choose an option of either the blue line or the green line. Our blue line is the equitation and performance focused area. So things like equitation and coaching, looking at how we can influence the performance of the horse and the rider, looking at managing an equine enterprise, and looking at the concepts of equitation science, provides students with the opportunity to understand the evidence-based theories that go into that equine performance and how we can utilize those to make the best horse and rider combinations available. So that is our blue line, and you get to choose that option at the end of your first year. You get to think about the pathway that makes the most sense to you and tailor your modules and your learning to support that. Our green stud line is really unique to Writtle. As we've said previously, we're incredibly lucky to have our own bespoke stud unit, and this has recently been built alongside our main yard, and we've invested over £2 million into our facilities in the last couple of years. So our stud unit is there to support both our kind of external breeding objectives, as well as provide a really good opportunity for our students. So alongside this green stud line, you have modules such as young horse production. So we are really lucky that we breed our own horses and we have livery mares coming into us. We also have a good working relationship with World Horse Welfare, which Caroline will talk about a little bit later. But we're given their horses to help rehabilitate and to produce for them so that they can go on to their forever homes. They don't tend to go that far. Our students do tend to fall in love with them, and often they get rehomed to our own students. But it's a really nice opportunity to be involved with young horse development, working alongside organisations to meet the brief required so that these horses don't, become wastage within the industry. They have really meaningful homes when they leave our stud site. You'll also learn applied stud management, so looking at how we breed horses, how we actually collect from our stallions, and how we would artificially inseminate horses. And this leads through to our kind of really applied stud module in the third year. As you can see, as you will see, there are some modules that are a little bit more generic that all academic students need to study. So things like research methods to set you up for your dissertation or your capstone project. You have to understand how these modules run. You need to understand the role of research and how to analyze those statistics. and that will lead through into a large project in your 3rd year, which historically would have been a traditional research-based dissertation. But we've taken it that step further to allow students a little bit more agency over what they want to study. And you can look at maybe a consultancy project, a business case study, a feasibility study, or working with an industry partner. So lots of opportunity to apply the skills that you've studied over this program to kind of get you networking, talking to people, and hopefully into a really great graduate role off of the basis of this program. If you have any more questions about this one, please let us know, and we can answer that after the presentation. Okay, I'll pass over to Rosa now to talk about our equine behavioural science programme.
Thanks, Jamie. So this degree programme really focuses on looking at the psychology of the horse and putting it into practice as well. There are quite a few different career pathways you could go down, and a lot of our students are either really looking at perhaps becoming a behaviour consultant or working in more of a rehabilitation role, dealing with horses that have had behavioural problems, or potentially going into areas where they might be teaching specialist behaviours, such as stunt riding, working for police horses, or even just consulting in a different area, perhaps in welfare. So you're not, whilst these courses are very specialist, as Jamie said, you're all getting this sort of core science line that enables you to go on. And we've had students going into nutrition, into insurance, off the back of this degree and other ones, and we'll show you some alumni profile as we get to the end of our presentation. So if we progress through the stages in the 1st year, very much working on ensuring that you have a really core in your equine science skills, you understand the health, the nutrition, the breeding and the foaling. That fits really nicely into behaviour. And hopefully you're learning some new things that you haven't perhaps come across out there before, and learning how the science fits into all of that theory as well. And in our introduction to psychology and welfare, we're going to have a really good focus on what are the key fundamental areas of equine behaviour and equine welfare. What does a horse need to have? And really understanding some of those issues that are going on in the industry at the moment, the current horse crisis in the UK, as well as some international welfare issues. So we're setting you up, getting you to think as an academic, as an undergraduate, and giving you those core foundation information points in terms of behaviour. We'll be looking at body language, we'll be looking at enrichment for horses, we'll be looking at stable design, and starting to really have a good understanding of why there are so many horses with behavioural problems. Then as we move into the 2nd year, we've got some really bespoke behaviour modules there. We've got the cognition and the training, where we're going to be learning all about how horses learn, how smart and intelligent are they, and what is it that sort of makes them tick in terms of picking things up, making associations, and how that can link into the development of some of these behaviours. We're also going to look at alternative training, we're going to look at natural horsemanship and start to see how does it actually work? How do all these different approaches come to fruition if we understand the core science behind how they all work, essentially? We also need to be objective. As scientists, we can't just look at a horse and say that one's happy, that one's sad, he's having a good day, she's perhaps feeling rather excitable. We need to have some scientific-based evidence behind that. So we need to look to the tools that we have, not only our observational skills in monitoring behaviour and observing body language, but also using some of the technologies that are available to us, like heart rate monitors, thermography to measure eye temperature. There are so many different indicators that we can use now to confidently say whether a horse is perhaps in a stressed state or in a more relaxed and calm state. And that's going to become really key for you to use whether you are looking at the academic side and wanting to do more research into equine behaviour and welfare, perhaps in your capstone project, but also as a behaviourist, if you're working as a consultant, it's really key to monitor how horses are responding not only to their environment, but also to your training and any perhaps changes that you would put into a behaviour modification plan. We also do this big double module on biological basis of behaviour, where we start to really look at what's going on inside. So how does the brain process all this information? How do horses see the world? Do they see in the same colours as us? Does smell have perhaps a greater importance to the horse than it does to a human? And starting to think more like a horse, rather than just always being very human about the ways that we view their behaviour. The key to understanding and improving horse behaviour is understanding how horses think and what makes them tick. So we'll look at stereotypies, we'll look at their natural behaviour and what it is to actually be a horse living in a herd situation and living on a natural diet, and then contrast that to what happens when we put them in a stable and isolate them and feed them on artificial feeds that they're perhaps not designed to eat. What impact does that have? And right down to the links of the neurotransmitters firing in the brain, changes to dopamine, all of that, we start to put it all together so that when we get to your third year, you've got a really core understanding of a lot of the theory and also a lot of the practical skills that you'll have developed, that we can now start to apply it and we bring everything together. So we do a lot more applied training and we start looking more at case studies and behaviour modification. We're looking at other factors in behavioural well-being, such as the vets, the physiotherapists, the dentists, the saddlers, the farriers, the shoe fitters. How important are they? What impact does all of that have on behavioural well-being? Because we have to look at the broader picture. And Jane is a great proponent for this, for when we're talking about performance horses, that you can't just focus on the training, you have to have the whole package. And paraprofessionals in the UK and worldwide are becoming more and more recognised for the key roles that they play in basically keeping horses going and horses together. So I'll let Jane talk to you about that a little bit more. And just one last thing, because I could talk forever otherwise, is we are very much working together with the International Association of Animal Behaviour Consultants. They are a global organisation with some fantastic opportunities. They're very supportive for our students. And students, once they've completed this degree, can then go on and register to become an associate or a certified behaviour consultant with the IABC and get professional recognition in the industry. We also have their UK chair, Justine Harrison, who's an equine behaviourist in the UK, come and give a week of bespoke lectures and training to students in your third year. So you're really getting both the academic and the industry practice side of it in this degree. And I'll take any questions on that towards the end of the webinar and pass you on to Jane for the next course.
So Rosa is absolutely right. Do you know what? We're so lucky as a team that we all work so well together, because there is no one horse that does not come from industry in the business aspect of our lives, whether it's a leisure horse or whether it's a competition animal. We impose and our human influence upon them. So as we give them a career path of relative to their breeding and their ability, we then need to respect that we may be inflicting issues upon them, both behaviorally, psychologically, and physically. So if we're looking at the performance science of this side of our programs, we are now going to have to understand where the training may have an implication in the behavioral aspect. So we do work together. We're very key that whilst we're working on performance horses of all levels, we are integrating the prehabilitation of our sports therapy and rehab programs. So if we want to understand why a horse is going badly, why has the horse changed its behaviors, we need to understand, with the introduction of equine therapy, for example, that we understand palpation skills, looking at evaluation and confirmation of these horses. Her postural stances are hugely telling. To me, a horse's body, the muscle formats scream a story at me, and it's about reading this horse's body and understanding whether it's had a good or not so good physical education, and whether the ages and stages of its development have actually been developed within the keeping of its ability and its breed types. So for example, looking at different types of horses and understanding their gait adaptations. Watching horses move becomes part of your blood group, and watching horses for straighteners, looking and interpreting the whole package, you know, from functional anatomy, which is a very laboratory based module. We look at the horses, the levers and the soft tissues, understanding the internal mechanisms by seeing in dissections, which I have to add is my best day out of the whole week, when I can do dissections, because I want to, you can't see enough from the inside of joint mechanisms, soft tissues, how we impact on them, how we ask them to move. So with exercise physiology, whilst we're training horses, we're imposing upon their physiology to conform to the different training and exercise regimes that we have put on them. So we have to have the respect about understanding that some horses will not cope, or some people in industry do too much too fast. And I'm sorry, I will be very focused as a coach in industry. I'm very focused on appropriate training levels for the horses. Too much, too fast, too quick. Horses just don't go for the long term. You will end up with soft tissue damage. You will end up with osteoarthritis coming in too quickly because the joints have not had a chance to strengthen with the muscles around them, or the muscles haven't had time to strengthen to support those joints. So whichever way we look at it, we're looking at the biomechanics. How can we use training methods to stay within the format and the parameters of how horses function? We train our students to watch horses move. I'm absolutely 100% focused on the correct way of going, how to develop muscles to support, how our students in the therapy and rehabilitation understand the importance of prehab and the correct training. And if there is an issue, how to use palpation, massage, stretches, evaluation skills. And these turn into case studies, and understanding through complementary therapies, perhaps, how you can use additional supports to promote well-being over time. This all culminates into having understood therapeutic techniques in your second year, and understanding where rehabilitation and performance can be strengthening horses, how you then turn it into case studies with massage and remedial exercise. So it is, again, the whole package, looking at the training, the impact, the behaviors, industry impact on it, the business behind it all, and how we can preserve the integrity and longevity of our horses. So that then takes us on to the performance side on the next slide. And within this performance science program, we're very into how can we maximize on these horses, knowing what we know and understanding about the therapeutic value. So as a physio and as a coach, I hope I am very much more targeted on keeping horses sound whilst they're training, and understanding that performance isn't just about doing the highest and the biggest and the fastest and the most elaborate every day. It's about building and training and how we can improve. But without the understanding of, say, saddle, fit and farrier, which every student should understand, the impact of all the extrinsic factors that we impose on horses, and how that may have a different connotation to the different breeds. So which is why the breeding and the foaling modules are so important, that we understand the different types of breeds and where they fit into our training and performance elements. Again, we look at how we take forward young horse production, influencing equine performance. How do we measure performance? And you know, none of this can happen without good nutrition and good fuel for these horses. So all the students come away understanding how to preserve horses and how to maximize on their potential whilst keeping them as safe and sound within that career path, whilst also understanding that it's the money at the end of the day that is going to be taking the whole industry forward. But doing it too fast doesn't make that you're going to make more money. It just means that you, in the long term, it doesn't come out in the same way. So this is about feeding this into our students now. And just before I forget, I didn't mention that with the rehab, the sports therapy and rehabilitation course, it has got opportunity to go forward. Well, all of our programs have, but you, especially with the rehabilitation programs, you've got opportunity to go on to postgraduate study, which you can work onto the physiotherapy, osteopathy. You can do additional courses, say as equine energy, but when you leave, we have an opportunity for you to get insurance so you can go straight into industry and use your massage skills. So we do make very sure that you have got the whole package and the understanding as you are a complete picture. Okay, right. Caroline, I mean, like Rosa said, I could go on and on and on, but please give me any questions that you think that I may have missed anything out on that. And Caroline, this is a huge, huge area of our industry that should never be underestimated.
Thanks, Jane. So we somewhat break the mold with this one. So this is a standalone one-year course, and it's completely different to all of our other courses. So for the first semester, so September to December time, you spend it here with us, gaining all the practical skills that you might need, as well as starting to begin your academic journey. And you'll see that the modules on this grid here are completely different. So because it's a one-year course, we don't share modules, we share some content. So we pick the best bits and the most relevant bits for what you need to go out and work in the thoroughbred industry, and we fit those into our courses. So within structure and function of the breeding horse, you'll cover some of the anatomy and physiology. You then have some nutrition that's bespoke for your course, geared at producing thoroughbreds and stud animals, and you have some hormone and veterinary and breeding related focused information as well. Within management and handling, you again, you have some of the health module content and some of the practical skills content, and again, some bespoke stud content. So we draw on the most essential items and the most relevant items to bring it all together so that you end up with a completely bespoke and unique package at the end of it. Within the second semester, you would actually be out on placement. So the second semester is nearly entirely distance learning, where you're on a thoroughbred stud throughout the foaling season, gaining that hands-on experience that we've set you up for throughout your first semester here. We have a number of studs that we're working closely with, and you can see some of these, so like Juddmonte, Highclere, Shadwell, New Cells, and we send our students out to those studs on their work placements when they're ready. So you have to be capable of going out there and doing us proud. We won't send you out to one of those high profile establishments if you're not pulling your weight whilst you're here with us. So you need to be showing that you're made of the tough stuff and that you're able to balance that work and study balance by working regularly on our stud throughout the first semester, doing your yard duties, getting yourself up to industry standard, and doing your academic study at the same time. Now, as of the whole equine industry, the thoroughbred industry is probably the most well structured for the most part. It does have its aspects that are less so, but from an employee point of view, especially if you're able to get a position in one of the big guns, so the Juddmontes, the Shadwells, the New Cells, they have excellent staffing structures with clear progression opportunities and with good employee benefits as well. So quite often their job roles come with accommodation, they come with health support, things like that. Every stud is different, but there's an awful lot that can be said for the structure and the pay that goes with some of these roles. As part of your placement, obviously does depend on the actual stud that you end up spending your placement with, but in the majority of cases there is accommodation offered, and there is also pay offered whilst you're on your placement. So you're getting paid to be there as well as you're doing your study. The Thoroughbred Stud Operations course also has the opportunities for some scholarship. So Shadwell Stud offer a scholarship where they pay for the entire tuition fees and your accommodation fees whilst you're with us for the first semester. And they pay all of that. They pay your entire fees if you're accepted onto that. We also have another scholarship via the Racing Foundation, and they will pay all of your tuition fees. So there's a number of opportunities for you if you're thinking that university is a particularly costly outgoing. This might be a good option for you. Obviously, we would expect that you have a keen interest in thoroughbreds, in racing and in breeding, so that you get the opportunity to maximise on that. If there is, at the very end of your placement, you come back to Writtle for 2 final weeks where we mop up any extra material and ensure that you finish all of your assignments and your assessments. So at the end of the 1-year course, you should have your foot well in the door with any number of studs that you've had the opportunity of meeting, of liaising with. If you're with Shadwell, you'll have, as part of their scholarship, you do another year with them. With any of the other studs, you might well have your foot in the door to continue working there or to move on to a different establishment. As you go through the year, you then would start being able to do some of the other things, such as the sales prep work, so you're not just doing the foaling. At Shadwell, I know that the guys that are on their 2nd year at the moment, so to speak, have just finished working in the rehabilitation centre there, helping to longline, where some were riders as well. They've been exercising and helping to break and back some of the young thoroughbreds. So you do end up with, depending on which stud you end up in, but a holistic, a very thorough knowledge of the thoroughbred industry. Again, at the end, I'm more than happy to answer any specific questions on this course. But for now, if we move on to the next slide. So as Jamie mentioned earlier, we work really closely with World Horse Welfare on the stud. So each year we take in a few young horses that we then work with throughout the modules, so through practical skills, through breeding and foaling sometimes, where we've got some some nice youngsters, or some mares that come in foal to us occasionally, and through onto the young stock module as well, especially. So as we can see, we've had a complete range of horses that have gone through, and you can see one of the images there is of a young horse production group where they were working with Jody, World Horse Welfare Jody, and they worked through the handling, getting the saddle on and backing that young pony. We also take our World Horse Welfare horses out to shows and competitions. We're very much of the opinion that if our students want to do something and they come to us with a "can we do this" attitude, then we'll try and make that work as much as possible. So we've taken World Horse Welfare Paolo back to the World Horse Welfare show at Snetterton in the bottom right image, and we've also used our young horses as part of open day events. You can see them longlining, and it's not just the equine students that get to be hands-on. We have animal students that come up and work with us as well, and the stud is very much a family experience. I'll let you move on. I think it must be you again now, Jane.
Thank you. So that's just part of the elements that you've just described there, Caroline, of some of the facilities that we've got here at Writtle, and we are blessed, yes, with 2 nice big indoor arenas, 1 big outdoor 20 by 60, which are used for all sorts of, they're like large classrooms really. They are an extension of the classroom on a practical basis for either the training and performance horses, looking at behaviors and reactions to extraordinary objects that students can understand responses. We look at them, using them for pole training, how to maximize on muscles, how to look at lunging skills. So everything that we have, whether it's the mechanical horse, anything that we do, we filter all of the programs to utilize and come at them from every angle, because there's no one course that is standalone, and there's no one piece of equipment or a facility that has got exclusivity. Perhaps I might have to call that back on the Phantom Mare and collection area, Caroline. That may be a little more your turf completely, but I benefit from the long-term outcomes of the collection areas, because we get the foals which then turn into the young stock, which we then propagate and turn into the training horses. So everything has got a long-term plan. It has got extensions of its uses, and everybody has access to any of these facilities, because we are very focused on just students. We don't have any commercial outlets particularly. We can run shows which, like if a student, as Caroline said, if students are inspired, under normal conditions, we can run shows for event management, and we can utilize and maximize with demos on our facilities, and run all sorts of things that are student led, because it's the student priority that we are controlled by, which is their integration into all of our activities. So it's a win-win situation all the way around. So if we then have a look at, those are the bigger versions. Now, if we look at some of our research equipment, we mentioned before that we are really lucky, as all of the team have got their specialist areas of expertise. And within our specialist areas of expertise, we are very lucky to be able to utilize specialist equipment that will support it. So it could be that we're looking at using Quintic for gait analysis. We could be looking at SIMI for gait analysis, looking at all of the thermographic piece of cameras that we've got, which could be looking for Rosa's behavioral horses or heat under bandages. It gives us an insight into so many things, and all of these, of course, become part of our trial equipment to support dissertations and collect data. And I think students surprise themselves how smart they actually become when they see this in the first year. They have no concept of their ability until, as a third-year student, they are looking at this with the potential for really impressive pieces of research that have actually been taken, as we said before, out into industry or into academic worlds and utilized at conferences. So this is just another part of our baseline, which we all have access to then elaborate on and take further into our actual trial stuff. So if we look at some of it in action, on this slide coming up, we've got some areas where, we're missing a picture. That's fine, that's jumped out of its place. But if you look at where the mirrors are, you've got, in fact, the one with the infrared camera, these would be related to the behavior research, where students can understand and utilize very practically what we talk about in the classroom. We immediately make sure that there is a practical element that goes with it. Even in these times, COVID times, we've been doing practicals with videos, with discussions, and there has been very little loss of the experience. It has just been slightly repackaged. Now, the laboratory work that we have based on the fact that this is a science program, and I think we need to emphasize at this point that the transferable skills can allow you jobs in so many different areas. Some students come away from horses completely. They may go into academia, they may go into the NHS, become phlebotomists because they're very practical with their skills in the laboratory, work in pharmaceuticals. Nutrition is huge. So looking at our transferable skills from the laboratory, I don't know if my little cursor works, but we've got laboratory work, which then gives access to skills in the scientific basis, which that could then be transferred into industry technology, such as streams. We did a trial using the streams development for increasing blood flow. We're very objective about how we promote industry technology, and we are very analytical about how we study it, because that is why we get sent pieces of new technology to trial, because we know that people understand that we have no bias and we just give what it is. And we will often be given, I think we did a wormer trial, and we've done streams trials, and we've done all sorts of things which people ask us to investigate. And that gives us strong industry links, especially in nutrition and in some other areas, such as on the performance side of it, working alongside event management. So we might be in event management, be looking at the rider influence. And this is where we've got levels of technology, the equivalent of Centaur biomechanics. So we have exactly the same equipment. We have pressure pads where students can be looking at their influence or saddle fit. We also have F-scan, which is where we can look at noseband pressures. We can then measure it looking at quintic and how we sticker up horses, which we then relate to the telerein and laterality. Do you know what? It goes on and on and on. We have a blast in our arenas because we have days where I wish we had more, I'll give you that, but when we get all our stuff out and we find a day and the students come and we put everything together, every theory lecture is backed up with a practical, and this is where we integrate the science into practice. So there's lots that we could go on about. We'll have to draw a line at some point, so maybe we better move on and go to my next baby, which I love. This is my academy. And basically what we decided was that students, you can imagine the arguments around the dinner table, can't you? The parents need students to go out, get an education so they get a good job, and it's all about that retirement plan, isn't it? But that's another conversation. So what we've decided was that why would students really want to have to choose those competitive riders who are competing and training, and why would they have to then stop that to then be able to come to university to get an education to go and then get a job? We thought, well, do you know what? If we package together an academy where students with their own horses, ideally in a competitive environment, or at least in a productive and pro-forward mentality of training, would like to come with their horses, have training on site, have access to our therapy departments, be involved in our demos, be involved in how we look at the performance way of going. They get training, they get to use the mechanical horse, we put tech scan on, and these horses in the perfect world will come in at one standard, and having gone through our training, come out and be at a higher level when they leave, ready to go and compete in the next summer or Easter or whatever it is. So that is the pathway with your own horses. We also appreciate the fact that there are some very talented riders who do not have access to, or ability, or the chance to bring their own horse with them, especially international students. So we do have the performance horse production pathway where good riders can be involved in our training, but on our horses. Now, the caveat to all of that is at the moment that unfortunately COVID has played its part, and we've had inconsistency this year, and that has been a shame. But we are still delighted that Burkett Long who have sponsored our academy for the last 2-3 years have stayed strong and supportive and believe that we can still find a way through this. So we're hoping that by September, I'm hoping that the students will be able to come back in the middle of this semester and we can then carry forward what we started. But please, if you've got any queries, there is a large load of information on the academy page on our website where you can find the details of how you make an application. You need a written justification and you need to do video evidence, and it goes to a panel and we then put you forward to become one of our academy riders. And there's a level of professionalism expected on your behalf if you are representing us. So yeah, it also sets you up to have very high standards in the future. But we can talk about that because I need to move on and let the other guys have a go. Livery options. Who wants to have a go at this one? Jamie, do you?
I can. Yeah, that's fine. Just trying to quickly unmute myself. So if you're not a student that is out competing, you don't want to bring your own horse onto the academy, obviously spaces on that are limited and it's part of a tryout process. You do have the option of bringing your own horse on DIY livery. So we have fairly flexible packages. If you wanted your horse to be used for practical sessions, or perhaps in ride sessions if you can't ride every day, there's a slight flexibility in terms of pricing. But prices here are based on standard DIY where you do everything yourself. We don't utilise your horses, and obviously these are prices. But for this academic year, there's a potential, as always, due to inflation, they could rise for September. But you have access to a stable, you have access to all of our facilities, so our schools, our treadmill, our horse walker. You get your hay for £3.50 a day, so that's ad lib hay. And you can include bedding, so either easy bed or straw, or you can provide your own if you wanted to. So there is a little bit of flexibility. Certainly, if you've got further questions about this, I'm happy to put you into contact with our equine resource manager or a yard manager who can answer in a little bit more detail. But it is a nice option if you perhaps don't have your own transport, you want your horse on site with you. It is an incredibly popular package, so certainly I would apply for your course and for your place on DIY livery quite early to ensure you get a space. But it is an option if you want to do that.
And there are also lots of livery yards in the area if you'd rather be slightly more out of town. So within a 5-mile radius, there's loads.
Yeah, and we can give you some of those if you need them, for sure.
Yeah, but probably on the livery page, there's probably some more contact numbers that they can go through. I mean, the career opportunities that have gone far and wide. Rosa, you've had loads of students who have worked in so many varieties of career paths, and not everyone goes down the horses direct path.
A lot of students go into various career pathways. One of the beauties of this degree is it's a Bachelor of Science, which means it's a life science degree, and we're setting you up with these transferable skills that employers from a range of different sectors or science sectors within the industry will value those skills. Yes, you've done an equine specialist degree, but you still have those graduate skills. That means you're able to research, you're able to manage your time well, you're able to assimilate information and write to a certain standard, present orally to a certain standard. And that's really what a lot of employers are looking for as well. Some just want to see that you're capable of studying at that level, you've got the autonomy, the independence to be able. I've had students, our course portfolio's changed a lot over time. We used to have a degree in equine studies of behaviour nutrition, and I had a student who fell in love with maths and decided to go into a career in finance. We've had sports therapists who decide they want to go and work in sort of medicine and go into sort of the ambulance service. We've had a behaviour student's gone into the ambulance service. So we have students that go down the non-traditional route. and they still keep horses as their passion and their hobby, but they perhaps go and work in a different area. We've got a student as well who I think I'm speaking to this week. I'm catching up with some of our past students to get some sort of careers profiles on them, and another student who's gone into law following this degree. And as Jamie said at the beginning, we've got a student who's been a solicitor for 15 years and then come to study with us. So at whatever point you are in your career, you're not always stuck on a path. This gives you so much flexibility to go in different directions. And we do really well with our graduates going into the nutrition industry, working for Dengie, for Bailey's, for Spillers, for Dodson and Horrell and Allen and Page, and a lot of the supplement companies as well. We've got a lot of students that have become lecturers, students that are working for themselves, self-employed, gone into coaching, gone into training. If we go on to the next slide, you'll see some alumni, and these are some of our students. We've got Jake, who was on a breeding degree. He's been working at various studs. He's now yard manager, so he was mare manager. He's now just recently been promoted to yard manager at Juddmonte, which is one of the biggest studs in Newmarket. Like, that's an incredible career pathway for him. Aline Bouquet is a student who came over from Switzerland, so one of our international students. Fell in love with nutrition. She went and did the internship at Kentucky Equine Research, which is one of the most leading equine nutrition research institutions in the world. They also work with Saracen's Horse Feeds, who we're now working with to feed our yard and provide us with extra opportunities. So we have lots of links and networks, and Aline's now come full circle and is doing a PhD in collaboration with Writtle and the Royal Vet College. Sophie, gone down a different tangent. She's now a senior producer. She flies all over the world. She was driving for 8 hours across a frozen lake to film for Mazda. She's been filming Frankie Dettori and Carl Hestus. I've got photos of her cuddling Valegro. Tallulah, the most dedicated student to get into the thoroughbred industry, has made it. She's a manager at the Tote. She's now the chair for women in racing and is promoting so much, appearing on Sky Sports, you know, having these discussions. And she's still only in her 20s, but she's flying because she knew what she wanted and she made the most of all of her opportunities at Writtle. She's actually a student who took a sandwich year between her second and third year and went and worked at Weatherby's. So we have so many opportunities, so many links and networks for you that there is quite a lot that you can get out of a 3-year degree if you push the right buttons. And if you're really committed to wanting to get something, then there is so many doors that could be open for you. You'll be familiar with Lauren Allport, and we've got some other students along the bottom sort of going into different career pathways from all of our different degrees. So pick a degree that you're passionate about, something that you really want to study, but don't worry that it'll tie you down to that particular specialism. Because it really won't. And you'll be surprised when you come in thinking, this is my career, I'm really interested in this. And by your second year, we'll have shown you so much new information, modules that you didn't even know existed, and you'll find your passion. So there's a lot to be said about doing a degree in what you like, and being open-minded to some of the new doors that we can open for you too.
Thank you. Muted myself again there. So before we go on to the Q&A session, and please do keep putting your questions through, just quickly, just wanted to let you know a little bit where you can find some more information. So first off, we have our equine page on the website. We're also running a one-on-one session with the academics next Wednesday. So you can either use the code that you can see here on your screen now, or you will be sent a link tomorrow on how to access this. And then finally, we have our virtual open day hub, and here you'll be able to see individual course presentations. You can view our cow watering lane and our stud facility videos, as well as lots of other information about our support services. You will find course booklets. So for now, we will move on to our questions, but please do keep putting them through and we will get on to those now. So firstly, do you have facilities for a one-night stay and not just the whole week if you live close enough to commute? I can take that one just straight off to say there may be, we don't offer that on site. We do obviously have our accommodation, but that is for students who wish to stay the entire time. There are external people that allow students to live with them, so you could have a look around the local area to see the houses that do that, but we don't do that kind of with on site. So looking at the next one, just pull those up. Do you run BHS assessments for students while they're at Writtle?
So we have the option of students taking one of our short courses on site. It's not something that we embed within our programme, although a lot of the skills that you'll cover certainly in the first and second year would be the skills that are required as part of that BHS exam. But it is something that we would advocate students to do. As I said, we run the short courses. We do host some BHS exams, I think up to stage 2. And we're quite lucky in terms of our location that students could do them externally if they wanted to, but it's not embedded in our programme per se. But if it's something you're interested in particular, let me know and I'm happy to put you into contact with our short course team to support.
Excellent, thank you very much. I've got a question for May here. How did she find the studying whilst going through the pandemic? How has she found it?
So obviously most of it went online. With the lecturers, they're really supportive, so they showed us all how to use Microsoft Teams because that's what we changed to. And obviously we had all the lectures pushed back a little bit so that we could all understand what we're going to use on Microsoft Teams. But I found it quite easy to understand. The lecturers were there to answer any questions and it was just pretty straightforward, so it wasn't too much of a jump that it scared everyone and made them all nervous. So everyone was quite confident using Microsoft Teams, so it was quite good.
Perfect, thank you, May. Can you change equine courses after year 1 if you think you are more suited to another course?
There is a little bit of flexibility. Certainly after the first 2 weeks, we would set you up with your timetable. It's very easy to jump between courses in the first 2 weeks. Depending on the course that you're studying, the jump might be quite straightforward. So certainly mid-first year, for example, you could very easily transfer from performance science onto sports therapy and vice versa. We have had students at the end of the first year transfer from equine performance and business management onto equine behaviour, but there is an expectation that students would complete what we call bridging study. And it will depend on the individual student's kind of portfolio, whether or not we felt they would be able to pick up that new module information without being taught it, in order to ensure that they succeed in the second year. So it's not a blanket no. It would be done on a one-to-one individual basis, but certainly within the first few weeks of the semester, the transfer between courses, if you arrived and thought, I'm not sure this is the right program, then that's a really easy fix. And you know, we want you to study the program that you feel you're passionate towards. So if you're kind of through the process and you think this isn't quite right, I mean, the very latest we would suggest a change would be the end of the first year, and whether or not that's possible will depend on what you're transferring to and from. But you know, everything's on a case-by-case basis, and we'd be happy to talk you through those options if the need arose to do so.
Perfect, thank you. How many students are typically on each course?
So it does vary year on year. We're really passionate about making our student staff ratio as small as possible. I think for this year there's around 25 sports therapists, around 15 equine behaviour science students, about 10 to 15 equine performance and equine business management, equine performance and business management students. So for the whole year group, we're looking at about 60 students, but that's broken down obviously between our courses. Sports therapy tends to be our biggest course. But if you have practical sessions where you're kind of the whole cohort will do it, we'll break those down into individual practical groups. So in a practical setting, we'd have no more than 20 students in any practical session. And often the groups are smaller than that to ensure that we do have that one-to-one time where it's needed. There might be some modules where equine, veterinary physiotherapy, canine therapy and animal students study the same module. So the theory will be taught in a large group or in a large lecture hall, but you'll have breakout tutorials to support that slightly more individual study as well. So even the larger groups that are more theory based, there's the opportunity to break that down into a smaller level as well, which I think is quite important. I don't know, May, if you've got any feedback on that because you've been part of it, but certainly we do try to make sure that students and staff have optimal opportunities to interact, and for students to have that individual learning experience. You know, I do know all of my students by name. I think it's incredibly important. You're not just a number, you're not faceless when you come to Writtle. So yeah, nice small family feel is what we try to go for where we can.
Perfect, thank you very much. When we had a one-to-one, the lecturer we spoke about potentially continuing one-day remote learning moving forward, as it works so well for all the students, particularly ones that commute each day. Is there any more known about this?
I think at the moment it's a distinct possibility. We would consult the students as part of that process. It might be that some students really don't like it. We're at this weird precipice at the moment where we don't know what's going on in terms of education or in the wider, you know, sector. Actually, you know, I think this slightly more digital approach to learning, I actually quite like it. I think it's really useful for students to have that opportunity. We've not made a decision for September yet, but I would sort of hang my hat on the fact that I can't imagine we'll go purely to face-to-face learning, because I do think having a slight digital presence does make it more accessible for students. So it's not defined. Certainly the communication will go out to all prospective students based on our decision when that happens. But I think, like many sectors, I can't imagine that it wouldn't continue in some element of that blended approach as it stands.
As Jamie said, this is something that we would definitely consult students with. Generally, we don't actually make any big changes to courses without consulting our students. So, and a lot of the changes that we do make are student-led changes in response to module feedback and course feedback as well. So we try and have that open dialogue. So it would probably be, you know, if we were to consider a blended approach as a more formal approach, and not because we have to because of the pandemic, that you would actually, if you were registered onto one of our courses, you definitely coming in September, you would get that communication and we would ask for your feedback on that and whether you agree or not. So we wouldn't just make a blanket decision and suddenly change the course to what you weren't expecting. We would have to consult with you. So please don't anyone panic if you're like, well, I want to be there and do it all face to face and I don't want to come if you're suddenly going to change it to online. We wouldn't actually do that without very thoroughly consulting you all first.
Perfect, thank you very much for that. Is there any specific work experience that I need to have before I start my course?
We don't have like a defined amount of hours that you need to spend working with horses, but we do expect that you have some level of experience. So though it's not clearly defined in terms of hours, if you perhaps aren't as practical, maybe get some work experience at a yard before you come, just to brush up on those skills. It's certainly beneficial. And just to make sure it's definitely the kind of program you want to study. We do have a lot of practical in our first and second year. So if you perhaps don't like being hands-on with horses, it might not be a career option for you. So it can help as part of that decision process. And certainly just to kind of, you know, open your mind to slightly different areas of the equine industry. Some work experience is beneficial, but no, it's not a set requirement at all. But it can be useful.
You would also have the opportunity once you're here to gain more work experience or more experience on the different yards. So just because you might be doing or interested in doing equine sports therapy doesn't mean you can't get stud experience. You can still go up and volunteer and do work experience on the stud unit if that's an area that you would also be interested in learning more about. And this is ditto with the equine yard. There's lots of opportunity for that, as well as for potential casual work and paid employment as well.
Perfect, thank you. What kind of assessments methods do you use? Are they all exams?
No, not at all. I think I said earlier on, we really pride ourselves on having a really diverse range of assessments. So no, we really actually have very few exams for equine students. It's something, again, as part of student feedback, we've tried to draw away from where we can, because not everybody, you know, can perform at their best in that quite intense knowledge recall type format. There's some modules where that is essential, but no, it could be a magazine article, or designing a website, or a digital marketing plan. It could be video content, seminars, debates, presentations. We try to mix it up. And, you know, for me, in my career path, I've never been asked to write an essay or take an exam as part of my job, but I have been asked to write magazine articles and produce webinars and write, you know, and do videos. So we want to give students all of the tools available so that it's going to support them in later life, rather than just relying on memory recall of you know, anatomy, for example. It is important that you know that. So yes, some exams are necessary, but they're not all written. We do have oral exams as well, where we ask you questions and take back that kind of honest answer from you. So if you're not a particularly strong written or memory recall type student, it doesn't mean you're not going to succeed on these programs at all. It is diverse.
We build you up throughout the years, and sort of your first year you're learning, what do I do at this level, how do I write, and by your third year we're giving you really professional based assignments. So equine performance and business management, you'll be doing real life consultancy projects, working with businesses on how they can make some improvements to their business. Our behaviour students hosted a live webinar and had people attending from Nova Scotia and from Canada and all around the world, listening to them speaking as a professional behaviourist. Our sports therapists go through, and one of their big assignments in the final year is having their own project horse and seeing that horse through all the way through that rehabilitation process, so that you go out confident that you've actually got the skills to follow the career that you want. We don't just sort of say, here's all the theory, now off you go, good luck in your career path. We actually give you the chance to practice that, whether they're practical skills or application of those skills through our assessment techniques, that make sure that you feel confident and ready to go out into that career.
Thank you very much. So we have got time for one more question, and then we will end the webinar. So just before we go on to the last question, as I said, if you do think of some questions after the webinar has finished, please feel free to book onto a one-to-one session running next Wednesday, and take a look at our virtual hub. I will show you how to access our virtual hub at the end. I'll just show you a quick video on how we do that. So the last question: are there any opportunities for me to ride outside of my course?
Yes, there are. We do offer all of our first year equine students the opportunity to ride, with the caveat that they are under our weight limit and that they are of approximately a stage 2 level, so able to control a horse in open order and walk, trot and canter. So these aren't built into any modules. These are additional sessions that you do book in for. We have ride assessments at the beginning of each semester just to make sure the students are of the level. We don't have what we would call typical riding school ponies. A lot of our horses are ex-competition horses or young horses, or horses that, you know, perhaps are a little bit more bred for a performance outlet. So as long as students are safe and within our weight restriction, then yes, there's the opportunity to ride in your first year. And some of our second year modules do include riding as part of those as well. Obviously, equitation and coaching, potentially young horse production do have the opportunity to ride for students if that's needed as part of their project horses as well. So.
Thank you. And I'd just like to add on to that, we also have, obviously this year has been a little bit different, but we have the Equine Society and our Bucks teams. So providing that we get back to some normality when you join us, there are also options for you to join our Equine Bucks team, and the Equine Society also put on a lot of different events, kind of ridden wise and socially as well. So I've got one more question, which we would just fit in before we go. On the equine rehabilitation course, are there opportunities to ride and experience what we discussed in terms of locomotion or visual structure in the saddle?
Ride, more observe, more understand. If you have your own horses, your own case studies, absolutely. With some of the remedial, it's definitely hands-on development of the training programs. Sometimes it's relevant to ride and to take that horse to the next training level, depending on the case study that you are working with, or it may be that it's a lunging program or in-hand work or pole work just in hand. There will be a variety of outlets with a rationale behind it. No, not an automatic riding opportunity for that horse, but fundamentally there will be an awful lot of emphasis on the correct way of going. Now, whether that's on the demo situation, understanding each way horses go relative to the disciplines and the requirement of the jobs and the career paths and the basic musculoskeletal systems response to training. So not going to say that it's always about riding your own self, but definitely it will be understanding the riding process and the implications relating to it.
Perfect, thank you very much. So that does bring us to the end of our webinar. Thank you very, very much for joining us this morning. So as we leave, I will just show you a quick video on how to access our virtual applicant hub. So enjoy the rest of your weekend and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.